Hello there, and welcome to my second video of this series, following the exploits of West is Best in the 4NCL. The 4NCL stands for the Four Nations Chess League, so we're competing against other teams from across the entire United Kingdom, trying to make sure that we play our best chess and have a Welsh presence within the league as well. We had it was a couple of weekends ago now, and we went into rounds 3 and rounds 4. And on round 3, we were up against quite a strong team. I can't remember now. I'll pop it up in a second. However, I would like to show you some chess because we've got some fantastic games that we should go through today. The first game that I actually want to show you is a game and a win by our legend, and that is Stephen Jones. He was playing against a guy called M. Townsend, who was about 2250, and somehow higher rated than Stephen at the moment. I don't know what's happened to his rating points. I think I kept on asking him at the weekend what happened, but never actually got a full answer as to the reason why, because he's much higher than his current grade of 2150-ish. So yeah, Stephen's black in this position at the moment, and you've got black to play and win from this position. And I thought this was a really nice tactic. Stephen has actually sent me a load of analysis on his game, but I just simply don't have enough time to put it into this game. So he really has put a lot of effort in there, and he really did know this game like the back of his hand. But I feel like this was like the moment about what's about to happen. White's just going to play bishop to f1, and I would like you to, if you haven't seen the game, of course, just pause the video, see what you would play as black from this position, because it's a really nice tactic that Stephen employs here. So I've got the answer for you, and Stephen plays quite an amazing move. He plays queen to h rook on e4, sacrificing his queen, and the reason being is that actually, even though his king on g7 over here looks quite airy, as in this queen might be able to give some checks somewhere on these dark squares, he's actually got it all covered. And he's actually got some checkmating threats himself. I'll show you how it happens. White takes the queen back, and then he plays the move bishop h3. So he's actually sacked his queen for a rook, but the problem for white is that this bishop is being attacked by 2 pieces, and when the rook takes it, that's actually going to be checkmate. And so white's got quite a bit of an ordeal to get out of this and to try and survive another move. And you're forever looking at all of these checks just to see if white's got some perpetual check. So I can imagine if I was playing this position as black, I'd have to have nerves of steel if I was Stephen. However, white plays rook g4 check, looks like the only move to try and save himself, and gives up the extra rook. So therefore it's 2 rooks for the queen that Stephen's kind of up now, if you class that as being up. I would in this position, because he's still got mate threats coming in the next few moves. And then he plays his king forwards, takes the rook again. It's just like, what? He's sacrificing another exchange. This is just crazy. And I think there's quite a nice little line here where white doesn't take the rook, but if they did take the rook, then he'd actually play a move like bishop to f3. And now this is checkmate, and white can't stop that checkmate unless he gives up the queen for the rook, and there's no way out of it at all for white. So it was a really nice sacrifice, and I think you've got to feel sorry for Stephen's opponent here, throwing all of these tactics his way. I'm pretty sure Stephen had it all under control at this point. White plays h3, defends the rook, and now he's got 2 rooks and a bishop for the queen, which is just too much. And it takes him only a few more moves before he wraps up the victory by taking a pawn with check and winning the queen back for material, and white resigned at this position. So one of the better wins from our Division 1 team at the weekend, and we're sad to lose them for the second day actually. So this excellent win on that first day against a high rated opponent. I think it was the only person to win in the first team, so well done Stephen. The second team did have some good results. However, the best game, I'm sorry to say, was actually by candidate master Alex Bullen. He played this game, which we're going to have a look at all the way through because it's got a really interesting opening. And then, well, I mean, he wins an endgame as well, which is just amazing. So this isn't an opening that I know particularly well. The Karo Kan, advanced variation. And we're just going to fly through some of the moves. By all means, pause the video at certain points if you want to see what Alex has done. Alex is playing black here. He's playing against a guy called Oliver Gill. He's slightly outrated by about 50 rating points. FIDE rated points, that is. However, he's got the... he's well within his rights to play for a win in this position against an opponent like that, so we don't know who's going to win. I don't know if this is theory, but this just looks crazy. It's like he's swapping off queens on move 7. And yeah, I think he told me at the end that he's not meant to allow this e6 move because we end up with this crazy king on f7 as his most advanced piece in this position. And if you were looking at this position from far away, you think, hang on a minute, what is going on? There's no light squared bishop for white, so therefore these squares aren't actually that weak. But you can't advance this pawn, you can't advance this pawn, because white's got those covered, and so his only real chances are to advance maybe on the queen side. It's an endgame, no, and we all know that Alex is really good at endgames, so I can see what he was doing there by swapping off into this position. But we're just waiting to see where these pieces are going to get developed. So we'll see how that works. So that's it. Alex put a knight on the rim. Yeah, that's a really good idea. But it does come to a nice square either here or here, doesn't it? So fair enough to him. And he finally makes the pawn break c5, but he gets checked. And it's like, hang on, where's the king going now? Because if the king comes forward to f6, then this bishop's going to deliver a discovered check against it. So he's going to go back to g8. It's just like, what? Is this bishop on f8 ever going to get developed? I mean, I hope it does. Eventually brings a rook into the game, and we play a few more moves. Alex's pieces get driven back even further, which I believe was in Alex's plan. But saying that, his pieces have been driven back, but actually white's kind of committed to his pawn structure by moving this pawn to f4. He has left all of these light squares, which Alex's knights can quite happily dance around. And so if he brings this knight to f6, both of these squares are highlighted, he can jump into, and he's already put a knight on the f5 square. So it's actually quite difficult for white to break through. Again, development of the rook in an unusual way. I see this a lot at my primary school chess clubs, to be honest. And he just plays really well from this point on. Finally, this bishop has got itself out. And he showed me the end of this game. I can't remember his exact analysis. But he starts to play better chess here, more and more. You can see already from about 10 moves ago when I had the last talk that he's consolidated these light squares. And he's got his rooks out. He's got rid of his bad bishop that was on f8, and he swapped it off for a knight. So that was a good trade. And the two knights here are going to beat this knight and bishop, because this bishop on c3 just has no squares. So the move a couple of moves ago with a5 took away another square from this bishop, took it off this diagonal as well, because it was on this diagonal, causing some pressure on the e7 pawn. It's not doing that anymore, and he's really playing against this bishop on c3. So black's, you could argue black's an extra piece up, and it's just a case of manoeuvring around to try and make sure that he can either win a pawn or exchange to a favourable ending for himself. We'll play a few more moves. Obviously, he's ganged up on this d4 pawn. I don't believe that white was able to defend it, and it's just a really nice game from this point in. We finish with a few checks. The pawn comes forward, he wins a piece. And with the two knights like this with the rook around, there's so many checkmate threats on this king. I'm sure he was looking at that way, but he just takes this pawn, and you can see that this king is going to get checkmated. So all in all, quite a strange game, but one that was won quite well in the end. I don't know what he was doing at the start of the game because his pieces weren't developed, but eventually when he got his pieces out, got them to the right squares, it all worked out for him, and he was able to play against that dark squared bishop. So really good game by Alex. I'll show you now the results of the round 3. We had let's have a look for the first team in round 3. We were playing against the. Click on that there. We're playing against White Rose 1. That's it, and we're completely outgraded. You can see the average grades here. Our average grades is 22.19, theirs is 23.63. So we kind of weren't expecting too much from this match, but to nick 2.5 points off them is really good. Obviously, Stephen Jones got the win there. Myself, Agostan, and Jack got the draws, which were good results for all three of us. I think even though Jack's rated quite low, he is an international master. I was quite outrated as well. So we're quite happy to nick 2.5 points. And when you start to look at the tables at the end, I don't know if game points might actually come into it a little bit, because we've done quite well with our game points because we only lost to Alba 4.5, 3.5. So that might come into play towards the end of the season when we're trying to survive relegation. The second team did unfortunately go down against Wessex A. We did draft in some new blood, so well done to Life for getting his first half point for the team on his first match. And obviously John and Alex, we already saw Alex's win, but another win for John Redmond, who had a fantastic weekend. But you see they're only slightly outgraded, 2084 to 2108. And I think they're quite unlucky to lose this match overall. So some real fighting games going on there. But unfortunately, Wessex A were just a little bit too strong for our second team on the day. Don't know what Alan Pleasance is doing there. He should be in a Welsh team, but we'll come to that bridge when we another weekend. We've got some fantastic games on the Sunday, which was round 4. I'll show you how the first did overall on round 4. So we were against North East England, and this was an absolute crunch match. Because when it comes to the end of the season, we know that both of our teams are going to be in the relegation pool. We don't plan for it to be that way, but we kind of have to plan and be realistic. And so this was kind of like a must-win match for us. But unfortunately, as you can see, we drew the match 4-4. I would say that I lost my game and Greg lost his game. We were actually two of the last games to finish, so we were probably 4-2 up at one point. I think Tim was still drawing his game as well towards the end, so it was like 3.5, 1.5. So if either of us had held to a draw, which we could have easily done, it wasn't easy because we lost, but you could see that the games were drawable. We would have won this match, and we got extremely unlucky to be held by a draw 4-4. However, fair play to North East England, who managed to play really well on the day, and they're fighting for their survival. And a draw's not too bad. At least we didn't lose, so we're definitely still in the hunt of surviving. Couple of good results for Johan and Jack. We'll have a look at those games later on, and then obviously a few draws as well. Just like to mention as well, if I go back now, just going back to the first round and round 3. Another debut was for Imogen for our team for this season, and she's quite unlucky against Stu actually on the bottom board on that first round. Another debutante for our team, which is good. The seconds in round 4, just before we have a look at the games, unfortunately lost 4.5, 3.5 to Cambridge University 1. So close again. First match was 5-3, then 4.5, 3.5 loss. So unfortunately that does put our second team at the bottom of Division 2 on game points. However, yet again, such a close match. We've got 3 losses, 2 wins. Well done to Stephen and Life. Life had an absolutely fantastic couple of days, coming in, getting 1.5 out of 2. And obviously Alex got 1.5 out of 2. And John Redmond also got 1.5 out of 2. So they had really good weekends. But we just couldn't get enough points. Obviously at the top end there, Stephen getting unlucky against Daniel to go down 4.5, 3.5. However, some of the games that I think were really important, if we get rid of Alex's game there, we've got Jack Rudd's game here. I think this was an absolutely fantastic game. I really enjoyed playing through this game afterwards, and we'll just have a very quick look at it. By all means, you can slow down the video or stop the video and pause it and have a look at the positions yourselves, or find the game on Chess24 or download it onto your chess base to have a look at it in a bit more detail. I'm going to really whiz through the opening. He's white's here against Konstantin Muller, who's 2280. Jack's currently 2234. However, Jack's an IM, and he's been much higher beforehand. As you can see, it started out as an Nimzu Indian, and Jack played the E3 Karpov variation and brought his knight out to E2 and then to F4. And it just puts a lot of pressure on this D5 pawn, and it also keeps these 2 pieces on because Black doesn't really want to take and put the other knight there. He just gets quite a regular D-pawn, Queen's pawn opening, but his knight's on F4 instead of it being on F3, which makes it quite a bit different. And I think Jack plays this really well. Standard advance of b4, justifying playing a3. And he gets his queen out to f3. I really like this move. I played a game against James Sherwin when I got my queen out to f3 in this kind of structure, and it worked really well. Because he's got ideas of attacking on the king side, maybe swapping off this knight to try and break through. But he's more just trying to put as much pressure onto this central black pawn structure as possible. As you can see with this b5 break, that's all about hitting this pawn and weakening the pawn by attacking it at its base. So yeah, we get a few exchanges. Jack activates his dark square bishop, which was shut in by his pawns. And with black retreating, it just gives it a really nice diagonal just to sit on for the time being. And I really like the way that Jack plays here, because he takes the piece on e4 and it frees up this d4 pawn, which we're going to see motor up the board and eventually win the game for Jack in the end. So as you see, it's coming forward, it's cramping black's position, much like Alpha Zero. I don't know if there's any correlation between Jack and Alpha Zero. They might be the same person, because I believe that they were pushing the pawns up in the games. And you can see here how this pawn is just creating quite a lot of problems for black, because he's got it defended by the knight, and so it's not easy for black just to win it outright. There's a nice little tactic of knight to f6 check, just in case there's any discoveries that black can win it. But I've just noticed actually he's got his bishop and his knight on it as well, so it's even worse for black. Bishop b7 check, and here we get a really complicated endgame that ensues. So the queens eventually get traded here, and we get this endgame, and it's just like, I remember looking at the position, and I don't know why, I think I just read the body language. I could tell that black was in trouble, and you can see that he might be two pawns up at the moment, but it's not an easy 2 pawns to convert. Black's got this knight blocking this pawn can't move forwards. The white king is kind of hampered by this pawn here, and so therefore it can't really get out. The one good thing, I guess, for Jack is that there's no checkmate threats against his king, because the queens are off and the rooks are off. However, just a simple move like bishop to a6 would stop the king getting past this square, so he's going to have to work to really get his king active, and you know that you need your king active in the endgame. So black is trying to save this game at this moment in time, and white's trying to win it. And Jack plays a really interesting way of winning this game. We're just going to get to it in a second. Knight takes b6, sacrifices an entire piece to win the game. It's just amazing, because now black's got to stop these 2 pawns that are coming forward, and he's going to have to give a piece back for them at some point. And now these 2 pawns can only be stopped on these 3 squares. And, well, this pawn can only be stopped on those 2 squares. Okay, this bishop could get back to f6 to stop here. However, it's going to be 1 if the pawn gets to this square, because he can put his bishop to b6 and play forward. And so black's 2 bishops are overloaded, trying to stop both of these pawns getting back to save them. He brings his king over to stop the first pawn with the bishop, wins the piece. Now Jack's got a bishop and 2 pawns against the bishop, but the bishops are on opposite colours. So yet again, he's still not completely winning. Although it's very easy to draw this. However, he does show expert endgame technique to win this in the end. And the idea is that he needs to activate his king. So he starts to play these pawns round, and he then finally finds the winning idea, which is to get his king active via the king side. I don't know if his opponent actually gets him to do that. Yeah. Eventually, this king gets out by the king side. And black had already given up another pawn to get to this point to try and stop it happening. And Jack's pawn is just going to run forward, and this bishop can't stop it because it's tied down to defending this pawn. So I would say just a really fabulous overall game from me. I thought it was a really interesting middle game, and a really interesting end game that Jack's played there, and he fully deserves his 1.5 out of 2 from the weekend. So a big well done to Jack for that win. A special mention to somebody that turned up on Saturday night. He didn't even play on Saturday, and yet rocked up to his game on Sunday. I don't know how he does it. All the rest of us are all fighting for our lives, you know. And here he is rocking up, and he's playing black, Mr. Reese's, and he's just giving away pawns in the opening. I remember looking over to him and thinking, what on earth are you doing, Johan? Are you not just a pawn down here? And my fears were kind of confirmed when I just saw him playing extremely quickly over the next 10, 15, 20 moves, because he's just lost a pawn in the opening. If both sides have castled here, then he's going to be able to play knight f6 followed by rook e8 to defend the pawn. So this rook would be here, and then he's going to be able to play rook to e8 to defend the pawn. But of course here, if he plays knight to f6, white's going to play queen c2 to attack the pawn again, and he hasn't got another way of defending the pawn. And so I was just like, what on earth is he doing? And I'm pretty sure that towards the end of last season as well, he was playing against the 3Cs, and he was a pawn down. It was a sacked pawn, to be fair, in that case, and his opponent fell for a tactic. But here's Johan just making the most of absolutely nothing. White should find a way to win this position. It's not easy to, and credit to Johan, he does cause problems for his opponent, and he asks him questions at every stage. So here f4, he's not letting up this attack. He's basically saying, if I'm going to go a pawn down, I'm going to get some open lines for it. And that's what you've got to do, is just basically throwing everything at white. And I think it was a bit more of a hopeful pawn sack or pawn loss and pawn push here, rather than actually calculated. I think he's just hoping that something works, thoroughly expecting white to find a solution and actually convert his pawn advantage to win the game. But credit to Johan, he sticks his knight onto e5. It's a beautiful square, and you can start to see that this bishop has actually got no opponents as well, so that's kind of an extra advantage. But he's given up another pawn to just try and open lines. So he's opened up the f file, and he's got control over f4, so this pawn can't come forward. But he has also opened up the g file for his opponent as well. But I think he's kind of half hoping his opponent does attack him, so it gets quite tactical. He takes back this pawn, castles queenside, bishop a6 to attack this pawn. It's pinned. King b1, and then straight away he's played a6. So I knew he was playing quickly at this point. But you can see what's coming next. This pawn's coming to here, and then it's going to come to here. We're going to attack a knight. I'm going to push white back as far as possible, while white can't really do very much. Brings his rook to g1. b5 comes, and then he brings his last piece into the game. You can see that all of the black pieces are taking part in this kind of attack on white's position. I don't know if you call it a king attack on the king or just attack on the position in general. And finally he captures here, plays queen b4, and after all of this pressure, white's been under a lot of pressure to keep hold of his extra pawn, and to make sure that he's going to try and consolidate the position, his extra two pawns actually, to convert it to a win. I think he finally makes a mistake here and plays queen to d2. And Johan straight away takes the queen, knight takes, rook d8, obviously attacking the knight. If it moves, then the other knight's behind. And you'll say, well, hang on a minute, the king can come and defend. Yes, it can. But then he plays check. And here his opponent, I believe, refused king b1, even though Johan might have gone back to d8 and got the draw, because he was trying to get a draw when he lost the pawn. I think knight d3 might actually cause white a lot of problems, and he's still going to have to play his knight to c3 to block rook c1 checkmate, because he hasn't got a3 because the bishop covers that square. So hopefully Johan would have seen that had he gone back to b1. And here he played knight c3, and it's just a simple pin attack on the knight. He tries to survive by playing f4, but he just takes, wins one of the pawns back, and here it's just an easy conversion for Johan at this level. And even though you could say that white's got, two pawns for the bishop, both of these pawns are doubled. They're not going to get any further, and black's just going to mop up the rest of the pawns. I mean, you can just mop this pawn up probably quite easily from this position here. I think you play king f7 just to stop this pawn coming forward, and white resigned. So well done, Johan. Definitely what I class as a spawny game. That being said, I'd still rather share with you than Alex. But well done. Obviously, rocking up, losing a pawn, and then coming away with a win. And obviously one of the a win that we needed, because if you didn't win that game, we could have easily lost that match, which would have been put us definitely in the relegation favourites, and we would have had to pull off a miracle to break out. That being said, I still think we might need a miracle to survive. having a look at the teams in the other pool that might actually join us in the relegation, they seem to have strengthened quite a bit, and we're definitely going to have a big, well, basically quite a lot of trouble in the last weekend trying to survive, but we're going to have to get out the strongest team as possible to do that. First things first, though, we've got next weekend coming up, which is in I think it's a week and a half's time. Our first game is against Guildford, and they're going to have Grandmasters pretty much all the way down. So we'll see how many points we can steal against them. Hopefully somebody can get a victory. And then on the Sunday we've got an absolute crunch match against Oxford, and they're in the kind of like a relegation dogfight with us. So that's going to be an absolutely crunch match. We've got to win that match, otherwise we might as well write off the season as relegation. The second team, they've got Sussex Martlets and Barbican 4 in CL2. Even though they're slightly outgraded, they're two teams that you can definitely get results against. Even though those two teams are in the top half of the table at the moment, and West's best two is at the bottom, the grade difference isn't actually that much, and they're more than capable of getting results against both of those teams. So yeah, week and a half's time, and you can watch the matches on chess24.com, see where we get on. Just a final note, that the main prize, the one that you've all been looking forward to, is currently the Ben Edgell Award for the most draws of the season, and currently that's been won with 3 draws by Agustin Mihalik. So well done, Agustin. You're currently in the lead. Let's see if you can keep up that form to the end of the season, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people hunting you down and want that Ben Edgell Award. I did hear that Ben Edgell might actually sign a pair of his socks and actually present them to the winner. So there's everything to play for to make sure that you get a draw. Other than that, thanks very much for watching. And yeah, watch us live in about a week and a half's time on chess24.com. Bye bye.